The official term for intimidation lawsuits is SLAP, an acronym for a strategic lawsuit against public participation. The suits are often without merit but are costly to many nonprofits and media organizations. Just ask John Oliver, whose show was sued by a wealthy businessman. 2 years ago, on his show Last Week Tonight, John Oliver aired a segment critical of the mining company Murray Energy and its CEO, Bob Murray, as Oliver recently explained.
We discussed his closeness to President Trump, his company's lawsuits to block a rule intended to limit miners' exposure to coal dust, and his insistence that a deadly 2007 mine collapse was the result of a naturally occurring earthquake.
Oh, yes, and he had a message to Bob delivered by a squirrel.
Eat, Bob!
Murray filed a defamation suit in West Virginia, a state without anti-SLAP laws, and defended his actions on Fox News.
We cannot allow these radical elitists to destroy the credibility and integrity of our good job-creating businessmen in this country.
The suit languished in 2 different West Virginia courts until Murray finally dropped it, freeing John Oliver to speak about the case.
And I would argue some of Murray's suits have clearly been attempts to bully people into silence, sometimes over incredibly trivial slights. He sued an editorial cartoonist over this unflattering cartoon.
Suits like these, though, are no laughing matter. Former Maricopa, Arizona Sheriff Joe Arpaio is suing the New York Times for $147 million over an opinion piece, while California Congressman Devin Nunes is suing McClatchy for character assassination. And remember PayPal founder Peter Thiel? He put Gawker out of business by bankrolling Hulk Hogan's suit over a sex tape. But a federal law against SLAP suits is unlikely to pass anytime soon. That's because the president himself has filed at least one and threatened to file others. Yeah, the president filed suit against Tim O'Brien over reporting that he did, saying that Trump had grossly exaggerated his wealth. And he came after him, too. But I was unaware, Dan, of the extent of these lawsuits, and I didn't realize that they all sort of came under this umbrella. And by the way, it doesn't just apply to the media. I mean, there are huge companies going after environmentalists to, stop all their environmental protection efforts and all that kind of stuff. So and many, many states have these anti-SLAP laws, but West Virginia is one that does not.
Yeah, by the way, these sorts of suits have been the subject of New England Muzzle Awards on several occasions. What I didn't really understand about this is that whether there's an anti-SLAP law in place or not, judges are supposed to throw these garbage suits out at the earliest possible stage because of the threat they pose to the First Amendment. There's supposed to be an assessment as to whether there's any merit to it.
Well, just as an aside, it cost HBO $200,000, but one of the reasons that didn't happen there was because the judges were impeached.
Right.
The Supreme, so it just kept going over, and the first case got dropped, and then the judges went to the next level, and then those judges got impeached.
Absolutely.
2 years.
By the way, I watched the entire half-hour John Oliver thing. It was just hilarious, and he's predicting he'll get sued for that too.
Well, you have to think about, there's so much economic pressure on publications, especially smaller publications, that when these things happen, it's easier for the New York Times or CNN to deal with, bring their lawyers on and try to get these things thrown out. But what happens to those smaller publications? And there's this chilling effect where, okay, let's go after this billionaire because we want to do this story. And all of a sudden someone stands up and says, maybe we shouldn't because this is going to cost us $200,000. And I think that's what you have to pay close attention to. It won't happen to the big ones, but the little ones might think twice before they uncover something.
It's totally disconcerting, and it's just another example of the media industry being under siege. I remember 10 years ago when I was working at the Boston Globe, I was sued before a story ran in an effort to have the story not run, and we fought it, and it was dropped before the actual story got into print. But it is a little intimidating. They tried to actually put my name, sue me for $10 million. So sort of.
A lot of these suits are filed exactly before the story comes out.
Exactly, and in that case, it was actually, they first sued someone at the Dorchester Reporter, or threatened to sue him, and they sent it to us because we were a bigger newspaper and could deal with that legal pressure.
Well, I've been threatened. I have not been sued, but I've been threatened when I was at ABC News 2020, sounded very serious, and our lawyers just sort of slap them back, so to speak. But yes, of course, has a chilling effect. And maybe what will happen in these, if something happens to a smaller publication and it's a solid story, that a larger publication would take it on. Because, you know, I think they go after the New York Times just to get more publicity about it, hoping that it'll elevate the conversation because it's the New York Times. And, you know, the New York Times is really not staying awake at night worrying about, you know, Joe Arpaio's lawsuit. That's just not happening. So to some degree, he's not getting what he wants on any level. But you're right. The constant threat of this is terrible. But this is the climate we're in now. Yeah.
They are putting them through the system, though, and that's the problem. So even the New York Times probably has multiple suits filed against them, and they're spending time in court. And
that's right.
You know,
yeah, but they probably have a whole team that, you know, that's all they do.
I'm kidding about that.
Yeah.